So I want to start today with a question that I think most hotel owners have genuinely never sat down and answered properly. Not the commission question or the occupancy question. We have already covered those in the previous two videos. This one is different. This one is about value. What is a direct booking guest actually worth to your business? Not this booking, not the stay, over the entire relationship with your property. I got a bit obsessed with this question a few months ago because I kept having conversations with hotel owners, obviously brilliant people running great properties who knew that they were too dependent on OTAs, who understood the commission math, but who couldn't quite bring themselves to invest seriously in direct booking acquisition. And when I pushed on why, the answer was almost always some version of, we're not sure if it's actually worth it. And I thought about it. Okay, so let's actually figure out if it's actually worth it. Let's run the numbers properly. What I found genuinely surprised me, and I think it'll surprise you as well. Let's start with how most hotels think about booking. A guest books, let's say 200 euros a night, 3 nights, that's 600 euros. That's a transaction. And for a lot of properties, that's where the thinking stops. You get the booking, you fill the room, move on to the next one. But here's the thing, that framing, transaction thinking, is actually one of the core reasons why OTA dependency is so hard to break. Because when you think of transactions, a direct booking and an OTA booking looks almost identical. Same room, same rate, one costs you 18%, the other one doesn't. Fine, direct is better. But is it actually worth building a whole strategy around? The answer completely changes when you stop thinking in transactions and start thinking in relationships. So here's what I mean. When a guest books direct, something happens that most hotels dramatically undervalue. You get the real email address, the actual contact details. And that sounds mundane, I know. Oh, an email? Great. But follow the logic forward, and it actually becomes one of the most valuable things your business can actually own. 6 weeks after that guest checks out, you send them a post-it email. Warm, personal, a local recommendation, maybe an early bird rate for their next visit. A percentage of those guest books again, right? That second stay costs you almost nothing. No commission, no paid ad, just the relationship you were able to maintain. They come back a second time. Now, they know your property, they trust you, they're more likely to upgrade the room, book the restaurant, try the spa. Their average spend per visit actually goes up, and they're more likely to come back a third time, again, at near zero acquisition costs. So, this is what the guest lifetime value actually means. And the data on it is pretty striking. Direct booking guests have a repeat booking rate of around 24 to 32% within 18 months. For OTA guests, where you have a masked email and nothing else, that same number sits around 8 to 12%. That's not a small gap. That's fundamentally different relationship trajectory. Let me put some actual numbers to this because I think it makes more sense. Your average rate is 200 euros a night. Average stay is 3 nights. That's 600 euros per visit. A direct booking guest who comes back 3 times over 5 years generates 1,800 euros in revenue. The acquisition cost on stay 2 and 3 and 4, almost zero. Maybe 50 euros across the whole relationship if you're running email properly. So net life value, roughly 1,750. Now, the same guests, same properties, same 3 visits, but every time they book through booking.com, for example. Each visit, it's 600 euros. Commission at 18%, that's 108. Net to your 492. 3 visits, 1,476. And that 1,476 comes with something else attached. You never capture the data. You never built a relationship. And you spent nothing on winning them back because you had no way to reach them. Booking.com owns that relationship. They remarketed to that guest between every stay. Your hotel was a product, they were the platform. The gap between those two guests over 5 years is 274 euros in hard cash from one guest relationship. Now, I know what you might be thinking. 274 doesn't sound like that much, but scale it up. If you're doing 1,000 check-ins in a year and 40% are OTA guests, that's 400 guests where the value gap exists. 400 times 274, that's 109,600 in lifetime value that disappears every single year, not commissions, lifetime value. And unlike commissions, which is a cost you pay when your booking happens, lifetime value loss is invisible. It's the revenue that never arrives, the repeat guests who went back to booking.com out of habit, the guests whose preferences you never knew because, well, whose loyalty you never earned. whose second stay went to the competitor because nobody reached out. Here's the part I find most interesting about all of this, and it completely reframes how you should think about your marketing spend. Most hotel marketing is built around cost per acquisition. How much does it cost to get a booking? And that leads to a specific kind of decision making when you compare the cost of Google hotel ads against commissions you're saving, and it looks marginal. But what if you ran the math differently? What if instead of asking, what does it cost to acquire this booking, you actually ask, what is this guest worth over lifetime if I own that relationship? If a direct booking guest has a lifetime value of 1,750, and research consistently shows direct bookers' lifetime value runs somewhere between 2.5 and 5 times higher than of OTA guests, then spending 80 to acquire that guest via Google Hotel Ads, it's not expensive. You're buying 1,750 euros in future value for 80 euros. I think that reframe is genuinely important because when you see the math that way, the question stops being, can we afford to invest in direct acquisition? And it becomes, how aggressively should we be investing in direct acquisition, given what we know about this return? There's one more layer I want to add before we wrap this up because I think it's underappreciated. Direct booking guests don't just return more often, they spend more per stay. Research puts it around 12 to 15% more per visit than OTA guests. And the reason is pretty logical. When a guest books direct, you can talk to them before they arrive. You own the communication channel. You can send a pre arrival email offering a room upgrade, a dinner reservation, an experience package. You can have a conversation with guests while they're in the planning mode, when they're most receptive to adding to the trip. An OTA guest arrives with nothing but a booking confirmation. You can still upsell to them, of course, at check-in, and it's worth doing it, but the conversion rate is much lower than a well-timed message sent before arrival. So, to summarize what the data actually shows, a direct booking guest costs less to reacquire, returns more often, spends more per stay, and compounds in value over time in a way that OTA guests structurally cannot. So, that's the lifetime value gap. And once you've seen it, it's hard to look at your OTA commissions line the same way. Here's what I suggest doing with this. Take 20 minutes this week and run your own version of the calculation. Your average revenue per stay, your estimated repeat visit rate for a loyal direct guest, your commission rate on the OTA version of that same guest. Calculate the gap per guest, then multiply it by your annual OTA check-ins. That number, your lifetime value gap, is the real cost of not owning your guest. It's also the most honest argument you'll ever have for investing in direct booking acquisition. The full framework for doing this calculation is in the show notes. Link to the article worth going through properly. Next week, we're moving from the mindset to the mechanics. I want to talk about something most hotel owners try first when they realize they're too OTA dependent. SEO. And why on its own, it almost never moves the needle the way people expect. And what the multi-channel approach actually looks like when it works. I'm Daniel Laurean, and this is Hospitality Marketing Lab. See you next time.